Good afternoon. For our call-in users, please be aware that you were muted upon entry, and the forum will begin in 5 minutes. Good afternoon. For our call-in users, please be aware your line was muted upon entry and that the forum will begin at 4 o'clock. Good afternoon, and welcome to the public forum on Tropical Storm Isaias. This forum will be live streamed to the department's YouTube channel. And I would like to turn the forum over to Special Counsel Rory Lantzman. And before I do that, I just want to confirm with our court reporter, Mr. Hubbard, are you ready to go on the record?
I am ready.
Thank you, Mr. Hubbard. Mr. Lantzman, go ahead.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to this forum regarding potential damages and harm suffered by ratepayers, if any, as a result of Central Hudson Gas and Electric's performance in response to Tropical Storm Isaias. I'm Rory Lantzman, the statewide special counsel for ratepayer protection, and I will be conducting this forum. On the afternoon of August 4th, 2020, Isaias struck New York, bringing strong winds and heavy rain that particularly impacted the Mid-Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island regions. Isaias caused extensive damage to electric distribution infrastructure that in turn led to lengthy outages for a substantial number of New York utility customers. Peak outages in New York State due to Isaias reached approximately 1 million customers, and roughly 1.5 million New York customers experienced power outages during this event. On August 5th, 2020, Governor Andrew M. Cuomo directed the Department of Public Service to investigate the electric service provider's performance in response to Isaias, including the performance of Central Hudson, Con Edison, Orange and Rockland Utilities, and PSEG Long Island. As a result of that investigation, the Public Service Commission issued an order directing Central Hudson, Con Edison, and Orange and Rockland to show cause why they should not be penalized and sanctioned for allegedly violating various obligations to ratepayers, including, among other things, allegedly failing to properly track Isaias and secure adequate staffing to properly restore power, properly communicating with and receiving complaints from the public, and properly ensuring the safety of life support equipment customers. Separately, the department urged the Long Island Power Authority to similarly take appropriate action in connection with PSEG Long Island's alleged failures to properly prepare for and respond to Isaias. And last week, LIPA filed a $70 million lawsuit doing just that. Accordingly, we seek comments on the following questions. How were you affected by the outages, including but not limited to concrete and measurable economic and material impacts, and physical, emotional, or social impact? Did you receive timely, accurate, and adequate information from your utility company about what was happening before, during, and after the service outages? And did you attempt to contact your utility for information or assistance immediately before, during, or after the outages? And did you get the response you were requesting? Comments at this forum will be part of the official record and may be utilized by my office and the department as part of direct testimony admitted into the record in the proceeding I mentioned above. Now, before we begin to hear from the public, we have been joined by Commissioner Diane Berman. And Commissioner Berman, I'd like to invite you to say a few words if you choose.
Thank you so much. Hello, everyone. My name is, as Special Counsel Lantzman said, Diane Berman. I've been on the commission since 2013. I truly believe it's important to be engaged with the public. And so I do try to do as many public statement hearings or public forums as I can. In this case, I am appearing virtually. My role here is really to just be a listener, and I look forward to hearing everyone's comments. Thank you.
Commissioner, thank you very much. And now I'd like to invite, if he is present, our first testifier, our first commenter, and that would be Mayor Stephen Noble. Mayor Noble, are you here? Hi.
This is Steve Noble. Can you hear me okay?
Oh, now we can hear you. Yes.
Great.
Mayor Noble, thank you for being here. We are asking people to limit their testimony to 5 minutes, but the truth is we are flexible and we don't want anyone to feel like they didn't have an opportunity to have their say. So please use that more as a guideline. Welcome and please begin.
Great, thank you. I'm the mayor here in the city of Kingston in Central Hudson's territory, and I just wanted to share with you some of my experiences from that event. I have to say that Central Hudson did a good job prior to the event, contacting local elected officials to prepare and to have conversations with both the Central Hudson staff as well as our staff to make sure that we all were aware that the storm was coming and that there could be impacts to the electrical system. For me, I think the biggest failure that occurred was related to communications. As you're aware, during the height of the storm, Central Hudson lost basically all communications, with the outside world, and it made it impossible for us as local elected officials to be able to understand where the outages were occurring in our communities and to be able to use the online portals and systems that Central Hudson has tried to create for us. And so for me, that was the biggest challenge. We here in Kingston, we're in the northern part of the territory, and so from an electrical power outage standpoint, we did not see the huge number of outages or the extremely long wait times to restore those outages. Most of our outages were restored relatively quickly. But I think, again, the biggest concern was that, as a local elected official, I wasn't able to really understand the kind of the depth of outages because there really was, no communication, during kind of the critical time period. And it was, sometime after that we learned that there was a communication issue that led to the event. But again, it was very challenging for us during that time period. And so those were, our experiences here in the city of Kingston. I would definitely continue to urge that as this, process moves forward, that having redundancy in communication is critical, and being able to make sure that the backbone of the communication is strong, so that during more critical events where, at least for our own community, we would make sure that we had a partner in our public utility or our utility that we could rely on, because we don't want to be let down during that type of event. And in this case, thankfully, we didn't have any one get hurt or any serious financial losses, because of, again, we were somewhat spared from the storm, but it could have been much worse. And so for that, that is what I'd like to share with everyone today. And I really want to just thank you for, giving us, those that are immediately affected, on the ground, an opportunity to comment and to be able to share our stories with you. It's much appreciated, and especially in light of the more severe storms that we're facing here in our communities, this is going to be even more critical going forward.
Well, thank you very much. Also, I want to invite you, if you desire, you can turn on your video and we can all see you.
Sorry, I didn't know that was an option.
There you go. I should have let you know beforehand. So it's nice to see you. I just want to ask you a couple of questions.
Sure.
What does it mean as a local elected official, a mayor with responsibility for your city and managing the resources that you have? What was the impact, if any, of these shortcomings, if I can describe it as such, with the communications that you described? For those of us who've not been a mayor of a city, how did that impact your ability to do what you needed to do to ensure the safety and convenience of your residents?
Yeah, so it's really twofold. We as a city manage critical infrastructure, everything from wastewater treatment plants to water infrastructure to our hospital infrastructure. And not knowing whether those facilities, were out of power or not, and how were they being impacted by the storm, it makes us have slowed response times if we needed to act as local officials. But then there's also the residents, knowing whether or not an entire neighborhood is without power. It allows us to better dispatch our DPW crews for road clearing. Most storms, when we have neighborhoods, via Central Hudson's online system where we see outages, we're able to then help direct our staff to those areas and have a better understanding of what's happening. And when their online outage system went down, it was really challenging for me to be able to direct my staff to areas of concern. And again, the critical infrastructure is the utmost priority, and I know that it is for Central Hudson too. And I know that they were very disappointed that their communication system failed. But I think that the point is that we have to fix it, and folks need to be held accountable, for systems that don't work. And I think that that's really because my residents hold me accountable for everything. And as we know, whether it's a snowstorm or a tropical storm, the more information that a mayor has, the better decision making that can happen in all of the different public safety departments. And so I want to be able to grab as much information as possible from wherever I can get it, so that we can make the best decisions.
Mayor Noble, thank you very much for joining us, and we really appreciate your input. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
Our next speaker who signed up is Supervisor Alan Bell, who's the supervisor of the town of LaGrange. Am I pronouncing that correctly? Mr. Bell, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Yes, that's pronounced properly. I confess I'd kind of forgotten about the glitch in that storm where the communications were initially down. My recollection is that was a broad internet outage that affected the region, because my recollection is that the Dutchess County 911 Center was down for a few hours during the same period of time. But that was obviously a huge problem. Once that communication came back, Central Hudson performed the way that they always do during storms, which is their online portal giving accurate information as well as specialized information targeted at municipalities which aren't available to the public. They were available on not only their own conference calls that they scheduled, but the county ones as well. And each of us as municipal officials also have a cell phone number for our regional contact, which they always pick up as well. Their communications were, as I said, kind of what I've come to expect from them, which is best in breed. I wish that the way that they handled storms could be mimicked by cell phone companies, cable companies, and other critical infrastructure, because our ability to communicate and get status with pretty much everybody but them is not as good, frankly. As I said, I'd kind of forgotten about the fact that we were all collectively in the dark, both literally and figuratively, for a while during that period of time, I confess. But as I said, once things came back up and the internet was back available, and that came back online relatively quickly, all their tools were back in place, and their participation on the conference calls is what it always is. And they seem to have adequate crews in place to me. I thought the recovery, considering the widespread impact, I thought the recovery went substantially quicker than I would have anticipated, honestly.
Are there any impacts on the town that you would like to share with us?
Well, as the mayor said, the primary impact to towns is almost always has to do with the interface between Central Hudson and our highway crews in terms of recovery for these sorts of things. I confess I am rarely involved in that, so I guess my perception is it works very, very well since nobody's calling me to tell me I need to do anything about it. Our highway superintendent has, I believe, good contacts with both Central Hudson as well as other highway crews, both state and county level, and they seem to coordinate those recoveries very competently during all of these kinds of storms. I mean, that was a unique storm in some aspects, but I've been in office for 7 years, and so I've gone through a fair number of these storms and dealt with status and recovery and those kinds of things. And as I said before, my perception is those communications links and the coordination seems to work seamlessly.
And I just want to ask you about the length of the outage and whether you had any complaints or concerns. I have a spreadsheet that goes by town and city and how many outages, how many customers were out on a given day. And from the data that I have, on the first day, August 4th, there were about 4,400 outages in LaGrange. The second day it was down to 1,800, but there were still outages out into August 10th, which I think would have been 6 days. It was about 168, which is I think the second highest in the Central Hudson service area. Were those outages unusual to you? And did you find yourself having to deal with anything as a result of those outages?
I really didn't. My recollection is that the number was high, but it's because they were sporadic and kind of isolated. In other words, I guess I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I guess I'd be surprised if any of those were outages that affected more than a relatively small number of people. And so, as they always do, they start with the big outages and they get them recovered quickly, and then they're left with an outage that affects 4 people and an outage that affects 2. We had a lot of we had a number of outages where instead of a tree falling down and taking out a pole, we had entire lines of poles go down, I believe, and some of those took some time to recover simply because it wasn't a matter of getting a truck out to fix a line on 1 or 2 poles, but an entire string of them that may or may not have even been necessarily along a road. And so I will tell you this: every single phone call that I got to complain about how long the outage was and the problems that they have was directed at our cable companies, not our power companies. I had a lot of people who had power back very quickly, but waited for days and in some cases a couple of weeks to get their cable back, and that's really who I heard from mostly.
Interesting. While I've got you,
as I said earlier, I had no real way of getting status for those guys, so right. It would have been very hard for me to direct and try to prioritize any of those the way I could if I was getting severe complaints from power. The largest and most inconvenient outage that I had in terms of concern from the public had to do with cell service, and I had assumed that a cell tower that services a sizable chunk of the town was down because the electricity was out, And when the electricity came back in that area, which I could easily tell because it's less than a mile from an intersection of two state highways, and once those traffic signals came back on, I realized that there was power in the area. The cell service was definitely not back yet. And I didn't really know what to do about that, so I called my Central Hudson contact, and he actually called the cell company, determined what the problem was with that, got crews out to assist because it was a pole or a line running up the mountain, and called me back for status and aided in recovering that service.
Got it. All right, terrific. Anything else you want to add?
Nope, that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker on our list is Bill McKenna, who is the supervisor of the town of Woodstock. Is Mr. McKenna available?
I am.
All right. Welcome. Do you want to go on video? It's up to you.
No, I'm not quite sure which button to press. Oh, start video. Yeah, okay. Let's see if that works.
There you go.
Okay. So first off, I thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak here today. I do agree with some of what the mayor had said, and definitely a lot of what Supervisor Bell had said. The mayor brought up the point about redundancies should be built in when things go wrong. And as Supervisor Bell pointed out, the system, Central Hudson system, was down because there was a network system problem, not their problem. And so a lot of us were down. But that redundancy is built in there, just as Supervisor Bell mentioned. Telephone. My contact at Central Hudson, Jason Malizia, who I dealt with for 5 or 6 years now, during that storm, we probably texted 100 times, and we spoke at least 2 to 4 times a day during the duration of that storm. I had all the information that I possibly could need. While I couldn't go online to ascertain on the internet what the outages were, I was aware of all the outages because he was able to keep me in the loop, and I was able to keep him in the loop and update him. We live in a big town. It's 68 square miles. It certainly doesn't have as many people or houses as either LaGrange or Kingston, but it's a challenging community because of the topography and the number of trees. And I could not ask for a better partner than Central Hudson. And in fact, they ought to be a case study for a lot of other companies. And I would add, shame on you guys and shame on the governor for picking on Central Hudson. You should be going after the phone and cable companies because they are atrocious. And I would agree with Supervisor Bell that they're my biggest number of complaints during storms like this, and they are impossible to get a hold of. I can sometimes, my contact at Central Hudson is able to reach out and assist me there, but even he has trouble with them. I mean, they're impossible, and that's who you guys should be going after. So I guess that's about it. Hello?
Lori, you're muted.
No, I got it. I can assure you that all of the regulated entities are being scrutinized for their performance during and the aftermath of Tropical Storm Isaias. Which of the while I've got you, which of the cable companies that you had the most difficulty with during this storm or generally?
Spectrum is the cable company. I guess now, is it Time Warner or Spectrum? I can't keep up with it.
Spectrum. It's Spectrum.
Spectrum. They're really difficult to deal with. I do have a contact there, and they're very pleasant, but I don't typically get anywhere. And in fact, the service that we're receiving presently from them is horrible. I'm continually badgered by people about their internet dropping and going off, even in good weather, let alone in a storm. And Verizon is the phone company. I don't even have, there's an 800 number. That's it. They are absolutely the pits. And, you know, I don't know. I had a good experience, relatively speaking, with this storm. We've had far worse storms. And Central Hudson has always been aces. I've been on the town board since 2003 and been dealing with them. And it's not just the contact I have now, it's been consistent for 17 years. Reliable, professional service. And seriously, they're the best organization, be it county government, state government, companies, businesses. They are the best one to deal with, hands down. You ought to give them a medal.
I'm glad to hear it. Have you heard from any of the life support equipment customers, and whether or not they were contacted by Central Hudson during the storm or afterwards?
I can't say. I haven't been contacted by any of them.
Do you know if you have any in your town?
I'm not aware.
All right, well, terrific.
Which would lead me to believe there probably aren't.
Got it. Okay. Anything else that you'd like to add?
Well, again, the medal, I'd give it to them because they're just reliable and professional. They are in constant communication.
Got it. All right, terrific. Thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Next up, we have Dana Smith, the Commissioner of Emergency Response for Dutchess County. Dana, are you there? I see you. Well, I don't see you. I see that you're here. Dana Smith? There you go. Dana?
I know you may be muted on your end.
There's Dana. Hold on, Dana. I think you're muted on your end. I don't think we've muted him.
No, he shows as unmuted.
Yeah. Nope, now he's muted. Hold on. Now he's unmuted, but I don't hear you. Is he muted on, Aaron, would he be muted on his end?
I think so. I'm not touching the mute or unmute.
Mr. Smith, I think you're muted on your end.
All right, I'll try unmuting him one more time.
Let's try unmuting him.
Does that work? No.
No.
His microphone might not be working then.
I think we're having an issue with your microphone because you're not muted on our end. Can you hear us? Can you give us a wave if you can hear us? You can hear us, but we can't hear you. All right, so what we're going to do, how do we resolve this, Aaron? Is there a number that Mr. Smith can call in on?
Yes. Let's see, it's on the screen.
Oh, there we
Can
go.
you call the number on the screen, and we can give you a phone number to call in with an access code.
Wait, I hear clicking. Is that you, Mr. Smith?
No, I'm sorry, that was me.
Oh,
Sorry.
okay, good. So please call in that number, 800-342-3330, and we'll get you up next. In the meantime, let me go to Kurt Hahn, who is the Director of Emergency Management for Cornwall. Kurt, are you there?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, there you are.
Yes. Thank you. I'd just like to echo a lot of the comments that I'm hearing. Central Hudson, I got to say, best in the business. I've got a lot of experience on different disasters. My 26 years in emergency services, dealing with several utilities, and they do it all right. Frequently, I communicate with Lisa Carver, our district coordinator, and her communication skills are exceptional. From before the storm to recovery, even during the storm, just exceptional. During Isaias, we had 100% of our community without power for about 12 hours, and they were quick to restore about 85% shortly thereafter, and with full restoration within 72 hours. The response was impressive. The crews that came in, mutual aid crews, were extremely professional, demonstrated the highest level of coordination. In fact, during the communications issues with Central Hudson, we utilized one of our situational awareness tools, which is our disaster reporter, which is a portal to collect data, including damage assessment from the community, for use by both citizens and first responders. We provided that data to Central Hudson with 22 data points, including several areas that had multiple poles down, including our main street had over 4 poles that were down, and I think about 6 or 7 additional that were damaged, requiring quite a bit of work, which also involved several transformers that were down. Again, they were just on top of everything, addressed every issue with ease. Lisa communicated frequently by text, email. It was frustrating for the community members, not to have the data, when are we getting our power restored? But as soon as our communication was restored, things were back to normal for our residents. We also, for situational awareness, we leverage our social media and our website to communicate with our residents, our audience, to make sure they have the most information possible for informed decision making. A further note, along line communication, the Orange County 911 system, all the phones went down for almost 12 hours on August 5th, which further complicated some recovery efforts. That was due to a Frontier Communications infrastructure failure. That was of great concern. So what happened while that was down, local dispatch centers had to rely on their 7-digit local telephone numbers to take 911 calls. Fire departments and ambulance stations, who are primarily volunteer, staffed their stations. And it was really concerning to see that level of failure. Text to 911 did work, but most people aren't really aware of that and how that works.
Do you have many life support equipment customers in your area?
Absolutely. We have a senior living complex, which has 215 residents, 215 units, over 400 residents, several on life support equipment, also multi-story buildings with elevators. It is one of their high priority reconnection customers. We also have an additional senior living center that has about another 75 units, and that's another one. We're fortunate in the Cornell community. We have the Cornell Hospital campus, although it's still not a hospital, that has a lot of robust infrastructure that they're able to reconnect relatively quickly.
Did you get any complaints or any issues with Central Hudson reaching out to those customers and making sure that they had service?
I communicated frequently with the building managers during the event, and they relayed to me that Central Hudson actually came by and checked on the facility and several residents who are on the program, which was reassuring. I also communicated that with Lisa Carver on how impressive their response was. They're really on top of things.
Okay, terrific. Is there anything else that you'd like to add that you think would be helpful to our understanding of what happened, what worked, what didn't work?
No, I think again, some of the best practices are in place with strong systems from Central Hudson. We're fortunate to have them as our utility provider, and their disaster response is second to none. Thank you.
Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. Let's go back and see if we have fixed the Dana Smith's situation. Dana, are you?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
almost hear you too much. There's a tremendous, tremendous echo coming through. Can you try again?
It looks like he hung up.
Oh my. Well, you want to get him back. His option also is he could call in and just dial in, right? He doesn't need to be by video.
Correct.
Right. When he dials the 1-800 number, who is he reaching? Is that you, Aaron?
No, he reaches one of my staff,
Right.
and they
Well,
have the information for calling in with the access code to
Got
provide
it.
to him.
All right, we'll go to the next person. If you could try to communicate directly with the staff person and see if they could, have him dial in and let us know, because we would like to hear from him. And those of you who are following, members of the public, Erin is our godlike overseer of this forum, and she's being very, very helpful in trying to make sure everything works and everybody gets a chance to speak. All right, so let's move on to the next person, and that is Michael Fasolino. Michael is president of IBEW Local 320. Michael, you there?
Oops.
Yeah, can you hear me?
I can hear you, and I see you're joining us by computer. Do you want to turn your video on? It's up to you.
There you go.
All right.
Well, good evening. I know this technology meetings can be somewhat of a challenge.
Come on.
Everybody's with it though.
Not for you. You're an electrician.
Yeah, exactly. So my name is Mike Fasolino. I'm the president of the union IBEW Local 320 that represents the majority of employees at Central Hudson. Upwards of somewhere north of 600 members. So I may have somewhat of a unique perspective, having been employed by the company for over 31 years, 27 of those years as a lineman. There's been many storms, in the last 31 years that have affected service to our customers. And I could say that if a storm of this magnitude came through 20 years ago, it would have taken many more days to restore power to all the customers. And I think that there's a variety of reasons for that. I guess the investments the company has made over the years, storm hardening, rebuilding circuits, smart grid technology, reclosers, regulators, substation rebuilds. I've been part of all of that. So these things, the fact that Central Hudson has somewhat of a, lack of a better term, a culture of a all hands on deck approach to storms. Every employee puts their personal lives aside. And that could be a range of things. Could be holidays, Christmases, Thanksgivings, birthdays. All that stuff kind of gets put aside, and they work a tremendous amount of hours restoring power. And they do that until the last customers are on. The efficiency has improved dramatically over the years. This actually, I think, sets them apart from other utilities in the state and neighboring states. Having been part of mutual aid assignments to other utilities in surrounding states, there certainly during major storms can be an amount of confusion. Unpreparedness can be evident when we travel. This creates a lot of unproductive time, hours that customers are waiting for the power to be restored, while crews may be sitting on the side of the road waiting for the next assignment. Central Hudson there's a few things they're good at, and one of the things that keeps things rolling would be the army of personnel that they have, delivering meals to job sites. These guys are working long hours. There's time to refuel, and what more is more efficient than doing it, right at the job site. Assignments are given in a very timely manner. Other utilities seem to have trouble with those kind of organizational skills. The list can go on and on, but to summarize it, the workforce that I represent takes these fines personally, and they kind of view it as a government overreach. Even after reading reports of criticism the morning after Isaias hit our area, our employees and mutual aid crews restored 97% of customers in 72 hours. I personally believe that these fines kind of tarnished that milestone because it was a huge effort. Central Hudson finished early enough that we were able to send our own employees to a mutual aid to neighboring utilities to get those customers, to help get those customers back on. And lastly, I don't honestly see the advantage of these fines, while I know that no company is immune to criticism, no matter who they are. These fines will not help our customers, will not help our employees, and will not help our company. So thank you for letting me speak tonight.
Thank you very much for joining us. I come to this position. I had been in the New York City Council, and it was my privilege to represent Local 3 and its headquarters, Electchester, in my district. I know the tremendous work that you all do, and all of us. I don't think I'm overstepping my bounds by saying all of us are deeply appreciative of you and your workers and sacrifices that you make. Unfortunately, these storms, they come when they decide to come, and it interests people. Like you said, holidays, birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, storms don't care, and you guys always come out and do the hard work, and we're very grateful for that.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I am not giving up on Dana Smith. So, Aaron, are we ready for him, or we're still working on that?
Can you hear me?
We can hear you now, no echo.
It's funny you talk about technical difficulties and the network impact that Central Hudson had. I just spent the last 36 hours running a virtual EOC through Teams and didn't have this issue. So it happens. So we worked through it. So you can hear me fine.
We do work through it. We can hear you fine, and we're glad you're here. So tell us what your experience and perspective was for Dutchess County and the response to Isaias.
Certainly, and I turned on my camera there if you can see it. So
now we can hear you and see you.
All right, there you go. Thank you. I appreciate your patience. I was getting a little frustrated. But as the Commissioner of Emergency Response in Dutchess County, my experience is a little different. And since I don't have the title of mayor and supervisor, allow me just to tell you a little bit about the background. And I do appreciate your willingness and the assistance I got from your staff to get on this call and to speak. As the Commissioner of Emergency Response for the past 10 years, actually effective today is my 10th anniversary, I've had a lot of experience in large-scale incidents and disaster response. My office is responsible for the county's Emergency Operations Center, its emergency management plan, fire coordination, EMS coordination. The Dutchess County 911 Center is one of my responsibilities, as well as our communication network. And we, again, do lead all of large-scale disaster response. We have an excellent, another unique experience here in Dutchess County. We have two utilities that provide electrical service, as you know, I'm sure, both Central Hudson and NISEC. So it gives us an opportunity to compare and contrast the response. As far as my professional role and also personal role, I'm a customer of Central Hudson. And I think it's important that they are responsive to their customers. But I think they are. Personally, I know they communicate before the storm via emails and messaging and social media and traditional media. And then at the county level, each county in New York, as you know, is different, not better or worse, just different. What Mayor Noble brought up is a different experience than the local elected official will experience in Dutchess, because Supervisor Bell mentioned one of the things that we do is county-sponsored and county-hosted with the county executive and my staff and other key departments, a conference call. Matter of fact, with the last storm we just had, we did one yesterday morning. We did one this at noon today. And on those calls, we invite the utilities into the call so they can report out on what their status is, as well as answer any questions or concerns. So my office serves as a liaison between Central Hudson County government and the local municipalities. Prior to this storm on August 4th, Central Hudson communicated us via email. They told us when their conference calls were going to be. My rep, 2 reps that we deal with, we communicated them via phone. Prior to COVID, we always had staff in our facility from Central Hudson. If we were activating the EOC, they would be here. They were not for this storm, primarily because of COVID restrictions. We operated in a virtual environment. They did have the critical network failure, but for us, there was a workaround right away. Our primary point of contact, once he realized it, he reached out to us. They were using an alternative and backup email, so we were able to communicate that way, as well as my 911 center and the emergency operations centers could still communicate by phone. So although it was a critical failure of their system, and having a microwave system and a fiber network, I understand that occurs. I understand technical difficulties like we just experienced 5 minutes ago. I think Central Hudson does an excellent job of communicating with not only their customers, but their partner agencies. And every conference call that we participate in with the local officials, they're on, and they're communicating with us and them. And again, we serve that role as a liaison. You talked about some of the numbers of power outages as it relates to the ETRs. This was a catastrophic storm. We have a brand new microwave system to transmit all our communications from tower site to tower site. It's guaranteed to perform up to slightly above 100 miles an hour with winds. And we had 3 dishes move. The storm was pretty significant, and it impacted a state-of-the-art microwave system that's supposed to be resistant to that. So Central Hudson had an impact. They came up with a workaround. I believe the numbers that I looked at, I don't have them right in front of me, but the night of the storm, there were 50,000 customers in Dutchess County without power for Central Hudson. That's a significant amount in my experience over the last 10 years. I do know that night they were making restorations. I do know there were pockets of smaller outages, as you mentioned earlier with Supervisor Bell, where it did take a prolonged period of time. But when you look at the catastrophic failure and damage caused by this storm, it's understandable that there are some pockets out there. We do work closely with Central Hudson in the course of a storm, and one of the reasons that is due to sheltering. We need to look at the community as a whole and the entire county, 300,000 people, and set up shelters as appropriate. And from a regional approach, we did not have to do that in this case, but Central Hudson is a partner in that as well. And I know you asked questions of others about life support products. If I could tell you what we do with that here, not only with Central Hudson, but with NISEC. When our emergency operations center is operational and Central Hudson or NISEC goes through their call down list and tries to make contact, if they're unable to make contact, they notify our emergency operations center, and we send law enforcement to the location to check on it and to make sure that everything's okay. And then they report back to the EOC, and that information is shared with Central Hudson. So although there were significant challenges, we were able to work through them, I think because of that partnership with Central Hudson. We routinely meet with them. They do exercises at least twice a year where their staff comes to our facility, make sure their infrastructure is working appropriately, and they can communicate with us and back into their system. I myself have participated in their exercises that they host at their facility, and I think they do a very good job. With Supervisor Bell's comments about the other utilities, as far as cable and internet access, those were a significant challenge. I know the rules and the requirements, the regulations for them are different, but one of the things that we urge for is that those things change in the future. The cable companies, 25 years ago provided you TV and HBO. Today, they're a critical communications tool. And the majority of our community who does still have a phone at home is relying on an IP-based phone. And without that cable and internet connection, they lose their phone service. And as the person who's responsible for our 911, that's very concerning to me. And the public relies, especially in the COVID environment we're in today, the internet as a critical component of their communication tools. And we went weeks with cable outages. I will give Altice Optimum a compliment. We did follow-up meetings with them after August 4th. And for our EOC activation associated with this storm last night and today, they participated for the first time ever. They had representatives available to us. We had access to their National Operations Center and also local reps, so we could communicate any significant outages. Fortunately, this storm yesterday and today did not have that impact. But I'll be honest, and not to be editorialized, but I was surprised when the fines came down for Central Hudson. Again, being in this role for a long time, I didn't see their response to the storm and for the size, excuse me, and the impact of the storm to be negligent or inadequate in any form. I do plan on following up with a letter as well, if that's okay with you, to the secretary. It's funny now, I can't hear you.
Yeah, so no, that's welcome. And anything else that you want to add afterwards, you can always submit it, and that will be part of the record as well. All right, thank you very much. I'm glad we worked out the technical.
Yeah, me too. Sorry about that glitch. I'll have to do a test again tomorrow with my IT folks and see what happened. But we worked through it thanks to your support.
All right, thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. Next up. Erin, do we have Patrick?
Yes, we do.
Good evening, everyone. Can you hear me okay?
We can. Welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm actually...
would you like to turn your video on? It's up to you.
I don't have one on this computer, actually.
Okay. All right. Well, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm actually joined on another connection by my Vice President, Joseph Rubino. I don't know if it's possible to move him up into the panelist as well.
When you say you're joined, what do you mean? He's on like a conference call or something?
On another connection. He's connected through his phone, I believe.
Okay. And so he'd like to offer his statement?
Yes, please.
All right, Aaron, can we work that? Is there a way to make that happen?
We can give it a try. Let's see. There he is.
All right. He should
Hello.
be. Hi. Joseph Rubino?
That's me.
All right. So
I'm trying to start my video. I don't know if I did that right.
No, we don't see you, but we definitely hear you.
Network?
No, we don't see you, but we.
I hit it again. Start my video. Let me try that. You are sending your video.
There you go.
You there? All right.
We see you.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. What kind of hat is that? What do you got there?
This is Haddam Killingworth. I'm in Connecticut. That's my daughter's school, and I'm one of the soccer coaches, so they give me a hat. That's my pay for the.
I was a soccer coach for one of my daughter's teams, and the parents got together and they got me a bright orange sweater, and I said thank you, and they said, you know, on soccer day there's like 1,000 people there, and if you wear this, we'll be able to find you.
There you go.
It was both nice and it had a function.
They can find me. They usually find me because I'm usually the loudest person on the field. But that's how they find me.
Right. Well,
So,
okay. What can you tell us?
So, number one, thank you for providing EJ an opportunity to speak today. EJ is an electrical contractor, one of the electrical contractors working for Central Hudson. We've been working for Central Hudson. EJ has been working for Central Hudson for about 8 years now. I myself have been working with Central Hudson in with my previous company, probably collectively 27 years now, 28 years. We're like I said, we're 121 years old, primarily in the New York market, New England market. Right now, we have roughly 300 full-time people working, and we're working for every major utility in the Northeast. And by far, Central Hudson is that at the top of that heap. You know, we've been fortunate enough to provide them with transmission resources, distribution resources, and I can tell you that they are at the forefront of the utilities that we deal with, and we deal with them all. And their proactive measures in retaining our local resources, the resources that we have on the property with them, doing what we call blue sky work, the everyday work of maintaining the system. You know, we're actively working on their. I know I saw it in their thing. Their feeder hardening. You know, for their feeder hardening systems to make the system more reliable. We're actively involved in doing that with them. Pole replacement programs, reconductoring programs, grounding programs, cutout and arrestor replacements. You know, they're really at the forefront of the utilities that we deal with. You know, we make sure that you know, when they're calling in these resources, they're ensuring that those resource complements are qualified electrical employees to do the work, because safety is at the forefront of everything that both companies do. You know, we make sure that the crews, that they make sure they hold us to the fire, that you know, the vehicles are newer and inspected and have all the proper tooling to do the task safely and productively. You know, we make sure that we utilize the most efficient hours to do the work that we're doing. They provide the meals, the lodging. They're really, you know, leaps and bounds above some of the other utilities that we deal with. And we do, you know, emergency response not only in the Northeast here, but we responded to Katrina in Texas and Florida, and you know, we're just in Ohio. And, you know, I'll also say that Central Hudson is one of the first utilities that once their system is buttoned up and their customers have been restored, they're one of the first ones to offer those resources to the neighboring utilities. Just a couple weeks ago, our Central Hudson crews were released to go up to Central Maine Power and support them getting their system back up and running. So, if there's some things that I think that you know, we can all do better, and I don't think it's a Central Hudson problem by itself, but you know, we can bring in additional resources from outside the country. We can go to Canada, where there is a plethora of available manpower, resources to bring down and answer to some of these events. But, you know, because of the regulations and making sure that we're utilizing all of our available resources, you know, U.S. resources, and we do, but we're not the only ones looking for them. Central Hudson's not the only one looking for, you know, contractors and manpower to keep the system up. they all are. I mean, if the storm is affecting Central Hudson, it's affecting Con Ed, it's affecting Orange and Rockland, it's affecting Eversource, and all of the utilities in the Northeast. So they're vying for the same labor pool that is in reality shrinking. I sit on the NECA board. I sit on the apprenticeship board for the Northeast. I think that on top of lightening up some of that regulation to get those resources in, maybe a bigger spend by all of the utilities in the Northeast, which not only helps get the feeder hardening work done a little more readily, but it also helps us get more apprentices into the program, because again, it is a labor pool that we're all fighting for to answer these responses. So I think that's something that we can all work on to have better responses all the way around. And lastly, I'd like to add, I know that we talk about resources and bringing in resources and spending funds for events when they come through, like the event today. We don't talk about the events that, like today, Central Hudson brought our crews in and paid for them to come in last night, and paid for them to bed them down, and it ended up being a non-event. And I'm sure it was a significant cost to them to make sure that they were ready in case it did impact the way it could have. So there's a lot of money that goes out that sometimes is not seen by Joe taxpayer, and I think that again, when my power goes out, I'd like to have my power back on as soon as I can, but you got to see both sides of the equation. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thank you very much.
All right. So next, we have Richard Berkeley, who is the Executive Director of the Public Utility Law Project of New York. And just for those who are waiting to speak, let me go through the list. There aren't too many other people, so hopefully nobody will be waiting too long. Next, after Richard, we're going to have Karen Morgan D'Amelio, Mildred Pham, Patrick Paul, and Ken Levinson. So that's the order that we have for the rest of our speakers. Richard, you with us?
Yes, I am, and thank you for having me today, Special Counsel Landsman. And I also wish to thank Commissioner Berman and the members of the Department of Public Service and the other speakers. And forgive me for not turning my camera on yet. I just came in from shoveling my car out, so I'm in upstate flannel. As you said, my name is Richard Berkeley. I'm the Executive Director of the Public Utility Law Project of New York. We're known as PULP. PULP is a 40-year-old nonprofit with the mission of educating, advocating, and litigating on behalf of New York State low-income utility consumers. We also participate on the state and federal level when it comes to policy proceedings, and we are a party to all major utility rate cases involving utilities seeking to increase the cost of energy, telephone, and water. We also operate a statewide hotline where we offer direct assistance to low-income and fixed-income utility customers in need. We appreciate the opportunity to provide public comment today in relation to Central Hudson's response to damage relating to Tropical Storm Isaias, which caused extensive damage in the mid and lower Hudson Valley, New York City, and Long Island, and resulted in significantly prolonged delay in service restoration in 4 of the state's major public utilities. After the storm, we received calls from customers and elected officials sharing their concerns about the extent of the electric outages. And for example, Central Hudson had more than 1/3 of its customers out at the greatest extent of the outages. So we received calls from customers and elected officials who were concerned about the extent of the outages, the causes, and their loss of telephone service and internet. The telephone service lost was primarily voice over internet protocol and cable phone. And they also complained about a failure to be able to recharge and use their cellular telephones, except for those people who recharged in cars or by leaving their homes. And that went on in some cases for only a few days. As one of the earlier presenters said, much of Central Hudson's territory was restored in 3 workdays, and in some places more than a week. after the storm hit on August 4th. We note here that failures of internet-based telephones are not the company's fault or within their control, except insofar as such non-traditional telephone service requires external power to operate, not only at the pole or at the node, as the service might be, but also in the home. We note also that the company has significant failures, as noted in the interim report by Department of Public Service staff, surrounding its provisioning and failures to upgrade its secondary and backup data center. The main concerns that Pulp received from consumers before and during Central Hudson's restoration and cleanup included the following: inaccurate information concerning restoration times and estimates of restoration times, lack of timely updates on their websites or in other manners on restoration times, failures of the company's websites, or a simple inability to contact and communicate with the company, either because of lack of power for the customer's telephones, whether non-traditional telephone or cell phones, or on the part of the company's telephone system. Concern and fear was also expressed by customers who require electricity to operate life-sustaining equipment, such as oxygen concentrators or anti-thrombosis devices, who were being told that restoration could take between 2 or 3 days. The reason that the public service law and New York State rules promulgated by the department single out life-sustaining equipment customers is because without electricity, they may die. And without the ability to rush them to a hospital or some other place with backup power, they may die. We also heard concerns from customers whose lives were significantly disrupted, but were overall given very little accurate information upon which to plan or rely upon with carrying on their work. And obviously, if this had occurred during the school year, now that many students are in school remotely, carrying on their education. We also heard concern from elected officials that asked Pulp how utilities could be required to perform better in many ways, such as communicating, forecasting weather, storm preparation, vegetation management, and restoration. After the storm, Pulp was asked to testify before the New York State Legislature on the utilities storm recovery. I note that this public hearing, which was a joint hearing between the Senate and the Assembly, included not only the 4 major utilities that had the most difficulty with Isaias, but also Outages, otherwise known as Optimum, a major cable company, Charter, a major cable company, and Verizon. Largely in response to the senators and assembly members' questions, we offered numerous recommendations, which are also in the transcript of those public hearings. But our recommendations included the following. We suggested requiring the Department of Public Service to redraft 16 NYC-RR Part 105 and the department's storm response and emergency response rules to account for the utility failures during the storm. This is a common practice by the department, and the most recent major rewrite, which actually added non-storm emergencies to 16 NYC-RR and clarified what those were, was done after the 2006 Long Island City, Westchester protracted blackouts. As you may remember, the Long Island City blackout went on for a great period of time, as did Westchester. We also recommended to the legislature requiring utilities to amend their emergency and storm plans and their preparations to specifically plan for telephone and internet failures during severe and protracted outages as occurred in this storm. We also recommended that DPS levy larger fines against utility companies during prolonged storm recovery periods and failures to comply with Part 105 procedures and rules. We also suggested that DPS and the legislature should increase oversight of utilities' preparation for storms in light of the Isaias experience, where a storm track worsened significantly on the last day before it struck the affected areas. We note now that lessons from some of the later storms of the 2020 Atlantic storm season should also be studied and applied. While some of the issues that came up today did not come up at the legislative hearing, I note also that preparation for operation of a public service answering point, otherwise known as a PSAP, or a county 911 center, during an outage of this nature is incredibly important. Because of the shift of many of the PSAPs to getting 911 calls by voice over internet protocol switching systems, they are more vulnerable in some ways to outages of this nature. I point out also that while the cable companies, which provide much more telephone service in the state of New York now than Verizon does, and they are the dominant provider on Long Island, for example, as I will say at that public statement hearing, they do provide some small print notification to customers that they are responsible for their own power to keep their telephone working during major outages, but that's insufficient, especially when we consider that climate change driven storms are getting worse every year, as we saw this year. So I ask that the special counsel and the Department of Public Service open an investigation or broaden an investigation into the behavior of the communications companies in the aftermath and during this storm and major outage. I also suggest that the department and your office, Special Counsel Landsman, look into the fact that while there was a great deal of focus put on the issue of coordination between communications companies and electric utilities in disaster gaming and other sorts of scenario planning, that it wasn't clear how integrated the communications companies were into the disaster planning and restoration scenario process. As I think it was the Dutchess County EOC operator pointed out, the cable company, which is a major provider of internet and telephone to the electric companies, to the governments in the affected areas, and for people trying to work or go to school from home, showed up for the first time after the storm. This suggests that there should be a rewrite of the requirements to force those companies into planning cooperatively, because the type of outages of this nature, and it is true, as the interim report notes, that Central Hudson had lesser problems than the other large utilities, and particularly LIPA. It doesn't mean that these are losses of work, these are losses of school, these are dangers to people's health that we should tolerate. Instead, this is something that should be telling us as a state what we need to do going forward from here. And thus I welcome the public statement hearings that you're having with 4 major affected utilities. In conclusion, PULP will provide statements in all of the Tropical Storm Isaias public statement hearings, and we will focus strongly on telecommunications failures on Long Island with PSEG Long Island and LIPA, and also with Con Edison. Thank you. I appreciate the ability to speak before this tribunal.
Thank you very much. And I look forward to hearing from you at the future forums. Next, we have Karen Morgan D'Amelio. Are you here?
Yes, I am. Hello.
All right. Terrific. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I just felt the need that I wanted to speak up because I was very surprised to hear how you're going after Central Hudson. We had a bad experience in the storm. We had a tree fall on our house. I have 2 little kids, one of which you'll hear in the background, unfortunately, I'm sorry, causing major damage to my roof and the power line. But despite that, within 2 days, my service was back up and running. We just really feel very strongly that Central Hudson gave us timely and up-to-date communication, including estimated times of restoration. And our service, like I said, was back up and running much sooner than we thought. Made us very happy. I really agree with what Supervisor Bell has said before, very strongly, that we feel that the governor's efforts should be focused elsewhere and not on Central Hudson. I wish other people had run their companies like Central Hudson, especially during the storm. We wouldn't have had other issues that we had, but we didn't have our cable back for almost 2 weeks. And like everyone said, we couldn't even get in touch with the cable company. It was impossible, but yet we get charged for it. And when you try to dispute it, you get put into a queue that you can't even get a credit for the service you didn't have. But I have more kudos for Central Hudson and can't say enough good things about them. I really feel the workers in the neighborhood, my neighbors, everyone was applauding them, was very thankful because those workers worked around the clock. And I agree, when I heard the union rep speak, it's very demoralizing for the workers who really worked hard to get the service back up and running to now see what's happening to the company. They do take it personally, and I don't work there, but I would take it personally too. And I really wish that you would reconsider this investigation and focus elsewhere.
All right, well, thank you for joining us tonight, and thank you for your comments.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Mildred Fan, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Ms. Fan is has called in, and so Ms. Fan, we need you to raise your hand, and that means you press *3 on your phone. Am I getting that correct, Aaron?
Yes.
Good. So do we see Ms. Fan?
Not yet.
Okay. Well, I'll tell you, here's what we'll do. We have Mildred Fan, Patrick Paul, and Ken Levinson. And each of you, in order for you to give your comment, needs to hit *3 on your phone. So why don't you all do that, and then we will take you in order. Okay, there we go. I see 2. So Aaron, why don't you just choose one, and then the other will go next.
You should have
Hi,
heard
this is
a
Ken
beep.
Levinson.
Yes, thank you, Mr.
Hi,
Levinson.
how are you, Mr. Levinson? Welcome, and we can hear you. So please tell us what you have to say.
Certainly. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak in this forum. I've been a Central Hudson customer for 35 years. I live in the city of Poughkeepsie. I'm also a property investor. You might call me a landlord. I have over 26 buildings in Central Hudson's jurisdiction. They're all in the city of Poughkeepsie and the town of Poughkeepsie. I have an excess of 100 tenants that I deal with. So with constant tenant movement and any issues, if any tenant has any problem, electrical or otherwise, trust me, I get called. And I can tell you that my experience with Central Hudson has been absolutely fabulous. I probably speak to them weekly, almost just in lieu of tenants having changeover of service. I sometimes have red tag leaks. I have oil to gas conversions. I'm in the field all the time. They inspect my gas meters. And for storm damages or storm outages occasionally. And inevitably, tenants call me first. I always tell them, call Central Hudson. That's the best thing you can do. What's nice about their storm response is if you call in and they recognize your number with an account you have, they know what location you're calling from. And usually, and this is for all storm responses, they can let you know that this has already been reported and we expect to get to your particular outage within X number of hours or whatever it is. My experience in my residence here in business is I've probably had outages maybe once in 35 years. I've never had an outage of more than 1 or 2 hours. In my apartments, and there's occasionally outages, almost every outage is resolved within 2 hours, which is incredible. Now, mind you, I'm in the city of Poughkeepsie in the town, so we're not quite as sparsely populated as some of the other respondents were at. But the response has always been tremendous. The people are professional. I've seen people in the field, linesmen and crews, and I can tell you, they're always hardworking. They're very courteous. I never see them sitting around taking a long lunch break or people watching the other person. They're always right on the job, cutting the trees, stringing up the lines, and making sure the job gets done. I can't say enough good things about the utility company. I'm glad that my residences and my properties are in their jurisdiction. And I guess I'm rather disappointed that they're being fined for something that obviously I have not seen. That's all I have now, but I'm welcome to take any questions if you have some.
Well, thank you. I appreciate your staying on and giving your comments. Just for your benefit and for others who are on the participating in the forum, no fines or penalties or any other sanction has been assessed against Central Hudson. That will be determined ultimately by the Public Service Commission. And this forum tonight is part of the process of us, the Department of Public Service, eliciting information from the public and from people who were impacted by the storm and by Central Hudson's response to the storm. So I just wanted to
thank you for clarifying that for me.
clarify that so people understand the process. All right, well, thank you very much. And Aaron, can you bring in the next raised hand?
Hello, how are you?
Good. What's your name?
My name is Patrick Paul. I'm a Central Hudson customer now. Actually, I actually moved from Central Hudson recently and went to another service area for another utility, and then I moved back to Central Hudson. On a personal basis, I've been very satisfied with Central Hudson, their response, how they've handled any situation I've had on a personal basis. But on a more professional basis, I'm also the CEO and Executive Director of Anderson Center for Autism. We have 45 locations in 5 counties, have 900 employees. We care for the most vulnerable individuals with autism in the country. And Central Hudson, through my 20 plus years of being at Anderson Center for Autism, has always been a partner with ours. They are very quick to respond. We have someone who works with us directly. We're always able to communicate with them. And during the storm, we had some internal issues because we have a 100-acre campus. We were able to work with them to identify what those internal issues were. We had to bring our own folks in to make the repairs, but they're always helpful in helping us to overcome any issues that we have. Many of our locations in our group homes and our day habilitation sites, some of them are in remote locations, and there's outages that occur on an ongoing basis. We're able to communicate with them directly if we have specific issues associated with some of the vulnerable people that we care for. They have expedited repairs for us previously, though we have our own generation at many of these locations, and we have cell phones also. There are occasions when our generation fails, and they're the first ones to say, okay, let's see what we can do for you. I have always found that when we've had any type of situation, that they are very communicative. They give us updates. They get right back to us to tell us when there's a problem and how long it's going to take, and if there's a change and how long it's going to take, because our care is critical, and they recognize that, and I think that they do an outstanding job. And I mentioned earlier that I actually moved to another area. And one of the comments one of the things that came up to me as I was in that other area with another utility was I really had hoped that I could get the area I was moving back to had Central Hudson as the provider, because it was a different area I was moving back to. So, and it was. So I was very happy to have that. But it did strike me when I lived out of Central Hudson's area for 2 years, that I was disappointed with that utility, and I think that is a testament to how well Central Hudson operates, their culture, and they are all hands on deck, and you'll find people that I know who are at varying levels who are really trying to help out. As they say, they have their day job and they have their job when there's a crisis. And so I think that they're an outstanding utility, an outstanding organization, and I can't say better things about them. And that's my testimony.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I appreciate your patience. We're getting to the end of the forum. We're going to give the last person who had registered to speak. We're going to give Mildred Tan another opportunity to raise her hand. What you need to do is, it looks like if you've called in, hit *3. Do we have any raised hands, Aaron?
No, we do not.
We do not. Okay, then that would conclude the public forum. We had asked people to register by noon the day of. If anybody would like to speak at a different forum that's not focused on Central Hudson, but something you wanted to say about Central Hudson, we'll certainly accommodate you and let you in on those forums. You can get the information on those forums from the Department of Public Service website. For those of you who want to submit a public statement, you do not need to participate in the forum. You could send it by email or by mail or by fax. And the means for doing that is, I believe, on the screen right now. And for those of you who are just listening by phone and don't have access to the screen, if you go on the Department of Public Service website, you will be able to navigate your way to giving a statement in whatever format or means is comfortable for you. That website is www.dps.ny.gov, www.dps.ny.gov, or just Google New York State Department of Service, and you will find us. Commissioner Berman, is there anything that you would like to say before we formally close out this forum?
I'd just like to say thank you, everyone who's given comments today. Please stay safe during the storm and these challenging times with COVID. Thank you.
Thank you. Erin, can you formally close us out?
Yes, sir. Mr. Hubbard, we are now off the record.
Okay, we are off the record.
Thank you, everyone,
for
Stay safe.
attending.
Yes, everybody have a good evening.
Thank you. Goodbye.
Yep, bye-bye.